my great pleasure to extend a warm and heartfelt welcome to everyone gathered here today. We are deeply honored to have with us Professor J.N. Balia from Department of Educational Studies, Central University of Jammu. Professor Balia is a distinguished scholar and an accomplished teacher educator. He is visionary in the field of educational technology, curriculum development, and pedagogical practices. Professor Balia has authored several books, research articles, patents, and copyrights. Besides, he delivered invited talks in several national and international seminars and conferences. He has contributed in various projects of Ministry of Education with special reference to NEP 2020 and Indian Knowledge System. And also he is associated with various organizations, national and international. He is life member of various executive boards. Today we look forward to Professor Balia's keynote address on a theme of profound relevance to our times. Hardware before hardware. The role of social and emotional learning in balancing technology and humanity. As we navigate an era shaped by rapid technological advancements, this theme reminds us that while devices and digital tools are powerful, it is the human heart, our empathy, values, relationship, and emotions that must guide their use. With great respect and anticipation, I invite Professor J.N. Balia to deliver the keynote address. Sir, please.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. My dearmost Mr. Dr. Adit Ji, Dr. Moolraj, Madam Roni, the faculty from MIER and faculty from other institutes across country, enlightened scholars and the students from different institutions and the MIER College of Education. It's a really matter of delight and other personal satisfaction to me that I am the part of this gathering seminar. MIER is an institute where you get all kinds of deliberations, all kinds of thinking, which are like in the futuristic context. And yet you all understand that the country is passing through a very crucial stage in terms of education, as we are on the path of implementation of NEP 2020. I always share in most of the platforms, most of the fora, that I feel really fortunate to be the part of this whole, I would say, the mission of Government of India, so-called NEP 2020. And in a way that when the second policy in 1986, NPE 1986, was handed over to the country in 1986, that was almost the period when I started my teaching. I was passing through that stage of professing my qualification and entering into this. So I witnessed that period also when 1986 policy was being implemented. And this time when I see that implementation phase of 2020, there's a difference. That difference you must feel and must realize. What is that difference? That this time the efforts, the kind of the whole mission being undertaken by various institutes like MIER College and MIER institutes for implementation of NEP 2020. This was not same as for 1986 policy. Across country, teachers are being tuned, teachers are being articulated to be the part of this policy. Otherwise, what happens generally, policy implementation is a part of the government. Policy has been framed, designed, and I think as a very young scholars and students, you must understand that this 2020 policy has a different kind of climate, different kind of culture in terms of even designing. When the policy was being designed, the designing of the policy started from bottom to top. That's what you must understand. Because when policies, we started framing this policy in 2015. So the people across invited, they were involved, starting from the panchayat level. The inputs were taken. The suggestions were taken from the bottom, from the micro level. So the policy direction is from micro to macro. And then in 2019, the policy draft was there, and 2020, ultimately, the policy was finalized and handed over to the country. What's happening? Almost 5 years have passed, more than 5 years, 5.5 years have passed. The policy was handed over to the country. But yes, there's a matter of satisfaction that people, the teachers, the scholars, the students, every stakeholders, all stakeholders are involved in the policy. And in this context, all institutes have taken, and our leading institutes, mainly MIER College of Education, I always feel to be the part of this whole mission, and all efforts taken up by MIER College of Education. In most of the events, I always participate, and I always feel honored to be the part of this. So, what is my intention to share with you, friends, that we all have to participate not only in the seminars and conferences, but in every kind of initiative taken up by any institute or implementation of NEP 2020. I don't think that policies would be, or this is the part of the government or so-called ministry to ensure its implementation. Yes, but we are the stakeholders. Even if you are the student of any institute, or the scholar of any university, or faculty from any department or university institute, that's your duty to be the part of the mission. Whenever any discussion takes place, try to see that how could you contribute. Not only that, how could you only, the participation has not to be only passive participation. Participation should be very active participation. So I think you all understand that by 2030, because if you go through the policy document, you might have seen that as on today, we don't need to talk about what is this policy about, but you all understand, because almost 5 years have passed. So, but this policy has a different kind of structure if you look at the policy. And the last line of the policy says that in 2040, this policy will be revised. But in most of the recommendations, the policy says that, policy reflects that this has to be achieved, by 2030. We are left with almost 4.5 years. These efforts, the gathering of people, the integration of so many human minds and thinking by many individuals would certainly make the path of implementation of the policy. Policy expects that we have to integrate technology. Policy expects that we have to involve the people. And when we talk about integration of technology, all type of, if you look at NEP to 1986 policy, because that was the policy where ICT was promoted. If you go through the document 1986, from that year, we started integrating ICT, or so-called computer technology, in the field of education. But 2020 policy talks about different integration of policy in education technology. And I think if you go through the whole policy, there's so many references about integration of education technology, integration of whether software, whether hardware, whether system approach. And I think you might be knowing that National Education Policy, NEP 2020, talks about that we have no option but to go for smooth integration of education technology. And therefore, if you look at the theme which I am taking up today with you all, because people say कि टेक्नोलॉजी आ रही है तो हमारे पर बहुत इसका इम्पैक्ट आ रहा है, whether it is web technology, whether it is any kind of technology. So should we generally people feel that okay, NEP 2020 policy says that we have to go back to ancient Indian wisdom and we have to go back to the old practices. No, nowhere it is. We have to ensure that we go ahead with the future perspectives. So that is the theme which I'm taking up with you. That yes, technology. When I'm using the word hardware, hardware means not only this hardware or this hardware. I'm talking hardware means I'm symbolizing these words as technology. So when you have to use technology, you have to integrate, and whether it is school education sector, or that is higher education, professional education, everywhere now we are that surrounded with technology. But I'll share with you some of the data, and I think you might be familiar with this data that because of the technology, our that kind of other health factors. I'm not talking about only the health, but mental health, emotional health, social health, spiritual health. All these health factors are getting disturbed. I'm sorry, Mullaji, थोड़ा सा switch off. I'm just forgot to switch it off. आप कर सकते हैं अगर आप you can do. Just यहाँ से limit like just silent photo. Just forward. Just sorry. So the topic, if you look at, it is hardware before hardware, and that's very serious discussion. That what we need to do as teachers, as students, as the people from education, whether school education, teacher education. I think most of us belong to teacher education. This institute is popular for teacher education. Years back, almost I think after 11 years, this institute will complete 100 years. This institute has a legacy of providing the first female institute of teacher education in the state. So in that context, I think even the participants who are other institutes have to understand this. Yes, the responsibility is on our shoulders. And the people like Dr. Adit, the people like my dear friend Professor Kaushal from Jamia Millia and Madam Ronika, all of us have the very, very, that specific responsibility to see that how do we ensure the social and emotional learning, because learning is not only that through subjects or only that getting the content. When we talk about NEP 2020, I think you understand the basic thing NEP talks about in terms of pedagogy, in terms of classroom context, in terms of evaluation perspective. This policy expects that our shift, our approach has to be from shifting from content-based to competencies-based. Now, this shifting of paradigm is very, very important. That our approach should not be only the delivery of content. And that's what, if you look at, I was sharing with you that gap in the policy of 1986 and 2020. When 1986 policy came, and you'll be really surprised to know that the curriculum framework, actual curriculum framework, which was based on 1986 policy, came after 19 years. And that was 2005. You can understand the gap, policy gap. I'm not criticizing any government or any authority for that purpose, but I'm just sharing with you as educationists, you can understand the policy gaps. The policy was handed over in 1986, curriculum framework in proper, though it came in 2002, 2000 also, that was NCFSE, but because of some political reasons, other things. Actual curriculum framework, it came in 2005. And that created the huge gap in the policy implementation. This time policy came in 2020, and with the efforts of all the people who are connected with, associated with NEP 2020, we have a curriculum framework for the country, that is NCFSE 2023. I'm sure most of you might have seen the document of 600 pages. And accordingly, books, the content have been prepared for that. And while preparing those content, while preparing those curriculum framework guidelines, the care has been taken that we should have the focus on SEL, that is social emotional learning. Because classroom is a place that should not lead to any kind of anxiety. What is happening now? हम बच्चों को assignments देते हैं, students को assignments देते हैं, students को work देते हैं, students keep on working on laptop, mobile, and because of that, what happens? That two things got coincided: policy and corona. Policy came in 2020, corona also came in 2020. That's very strange. When policy was handed over in 29 July 2020, that was the peak time of corona going on. First wave was going on. So there was shifting, social distance and all that, and then people started. Then use of mobile, use of laptop, use of online learning became kind of necessity of the population across world. But at the same time, this kind of pressure came that if you keep on using hardware, means technology, what would happen? This would lead to so many other problems. That's what I'm talking about. What is the role of SEL? And when I say SEL, means role of all the people who are involved related with SEL in balancing technology with humanity and humanity. I don't have control. Okay, thank you. So these are the different things which I will be taking care of in the discussion, and I hope that discussion would be understanding hardware. I think you all understand what I'm talking about. What are the SEL core competencies when we talk about social and emotional learning? And I said that, I just now shared with you, friends, that NEP expects that we have to shift our approach from content based to competencies based. हम लोग को बहुत ये जितने भी हम लोग टीचर एजुकेटर्स यहाँ बैठे हुए हैं, प्री सर्विस टीचर एजुकेटर्स मींस एमएड स्टूडेंट्स or MIER students or research scholars, faculty, including me, myself, Madam Ronika, and everyone. This is a very serious time, a very, I would say, sensitive time when we have to ensure that our approach has, वो policy expect कर रही है हमसे, कि हम subjects में content, वो approach आपको, अगर आप लोगों ने NCFSE की textbooks देखी होंगी, वो approach expected है teacher से. उसमें वो social emotional learning reflected है. If you do the content analysis of NCFSE textbooks, which have been released by NCRT in 2024 and 25. But the role comes of the teacher, which I'll be taking up. So these are the different aspects I'll be taking up. And so when we talk about hardware, actually hardware means, broadly you understand, students, we talk about very old, almost 70 years old concept given by, or 60 years old concept given by Professor Benjamin S. Bloom. What's that? Bloom's taxonomy. I think most of us are familiar with that. And Professor Benjamin S. Bloom talked about cognitive, affective, and but what would happen? Because our approach is mainly on cognitive aspects. So the most of the work came for, or we deliberated upon cognitive domain. Less efforts could be that initiated on or for affective domain. और जबकि बहुत important. अब इतना सारा टेक्नोलॉजी यूज करने की बात आ रही, पॉलिसी उसको प्रमोट कर रही है, होना भी चाहिए. बिकॉज यू कैन नॉट से आपके हम मोबाइल बंद कर दें, हम लैपटॉप यूज नहीं करें, वेब टेक्नोलॉजी को हम कर दें, लेकिन what the other ways and means we have to adopt to counter this challenge, and that's what I'm talking about. So heart rate basically talks about that human emotional and social intelligence. I think बहुत सारे scholars बैठे होंगे शायद जो social intelligence पर research कर रहे हो. बहुत सारे scholars होंगे जो कि emotional intelligence पर research कर रहे हैं. This is very, and when I say scholars, believe me, every teacher has to be a scholar. Teacher's approach has to be, that research based. That's what policy also expects from us. इसलिए हर टीचर को, वो चाहे स्कूल एजुकेशन में भी है, जो वो टीचर्स बनने वाले हैं, every teacher has to ensure that our approach has to be research based. So social and emotional learning, where we talk about how to, because the researchers, the data, the key current data, whether by at global level or Indian context, I'll be sharing some of the data. It reflects that this is really a challenge. क्योंकि हम लोग जो जितना लैपटॉप यूज करते हैं, मोबाइल यूज करते हैं, उसका डाटा आप देखेंगे भी आप स्लाइड्स में, तो विल बी रियली सरप्राइज्ड. बट व्हाट टू डू? हम उसको क्या बंद करते हैं क्या? हम लैपटॉप मोबाइल को आज की डेट में हम एम लर्निंग की बात कर रहे हैं, अब तो नई नई टेक्नोलॉजी आ रही है. हाउ टू एक्चुअली यूज दैट टेक्नोलॉजी and strike the balance between humanity and technology. So that's what we talk about hardware. We are talking about how do we understand and manage emotions, how do we set and achieve positive goals, and all these things actually are reflected in our NEP 2020, and because that's a broad theme of this whole gathering, जो कल से आप लोग हम लोग सब डिस्कशन कर रहे हैं. The core theme is actually we have to participate in this yajna of NEP 2020. We have to really seriously take up this task. ये NEP 2020 हमारे लिए एक boon है, वरदान है. It should not be a bane, it should be a boon. हमारे लिए श्राप नहीं होना चाहिए, हमारे लिए वरदान है, which is actually designed and crafted by many people, and implementation is on our shoulders. हम लोग को उसमें कैसे participate करना है. So the policy talks about how to have, feel, and how do we show empathy for others. ये आप सब चीज देखेंगे. मैं आपको पर्सनल अपील कर रहा हूँ, बिकॉज हमारे लिए बहुत बड़ी जिम्मेदारी है. हम लोग जब नया करिकुलम फ्रेमवर्क आया है MCFSE, हम लोग कौशल, हम लोग बहुत इस पर बात करते रहते हैं कि उस करिकुलम के इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में क्या क्या चीजें होंगी, किस तरह के टीचर्स तैयार होंगे. मायर जैसे इंस्टीट्यूट की बहुत रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कि उन टीचर्स को हम तैयार करें जो कि NCFSE 2023 को आगे ले जाए. बिकॉज दिस करिकुलम हैज बीन फ्रेम्ड, यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड दिस. Previous curriculum was framed in 2005, and this new curriculum came in almost in 2025, 20 years gap. So how do we ensure that that curriculum is actually translated in the classroom pedagogies? उसके लिए हमको सीरियसली सोचना पड़ेगा. हमसे कुछ भी इधर उधर की गलती हुई, हम फिर उसी अप्रोच में चलें कि एक मैथ्स की बुक का हमको कंटेंट डिलीवर करना है, सोशल साइंस पे मुझे हिस्ट्री पढ़ानी है, ज्योग्राफी. Through geography, we have to ensure that how do we create social and emotional learning. That's what is required. Because the content should become the bridge for the students to have social. और ये चीज बहुत मिस हो रही है हमसे आज की डेट में. पूरे वर्ल्ड में, हमारी कंट्री में भी जो इस टाइम सोशल केओस, इमोशनल केओस है, ये that's the I kind of the responsibility. क्योंकि दर्द भी हम दे रहे हैं, दवा भी हमारे पास है, ये ध्यान रखिए. करिकुलम हमारा बच्चों को दर्द देने के लिए नहीं होना चाहिए, बल्कि दवा के काम करना चाहिए. ये जो हमारी क्लासरूम में स्टूडेंट्स को हम लोग पढ़ाते हैं या बच्चों को टास्क देते हैं, that should become a kind of path for them to be socially, emotionally balanced individual. ये बहुत बड़ा इशू है. Not in a country, across world. अब आप सुनते होंगे ऐसे इंसिडेंट्स, खासकर डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज में स्टूडेंट्स बहुत अंदर से फ्रस्ट्रेटेड हैं, chaos है, इमोशनल कनेक्ट लोगों के मिस हो रहे हैं, और उसमें टेक्नोलॉजी का क्या रोल है उस पर हम आ रहे हैं. Now, this is the data और इस डाटा में आप देखेंगे कि ऐसे बहुत सारे डाटा हैं. Because of the time constraints, I'm not sharing with those data, but just one data I will share with you. Screen time को हम लेके चलें. This is just one of screen time. Could be mobile screen or laptop screen or maybe this screen also. Don't get disheartened and frightened. आप सोच लेंगे कि less than 1 hour का हम screen देख रहे हैं शायद. But these are the data, friends. That likelihood of depression and likelihood of low life satisfaction. You can see that the more time we devote on a screen, the likelihood of depression, likelihood of lower life satisfaction हमारा शिफ्ट हो रहा है. और कई बार लगता है हम लोग अभी भी कितने लोग मैं देख रहा हूं पीछे भी बैठे हुए कि हम स्क्रीन से अपने आप को अवे नहीं कर पा रहे. हर 10 मिनट बाद एक मेरे पास थीसिस आई थी कौशल जी, शायद पता नहीं कहां से आई थी मुझे याद नहीं है, वो होगी इसकी अवार्ड भी होगी. बट दैट वाज वेरी, आपने सुना होगा वर्ड वो नोमोफोबिया, नो मोबाइल फोबिया. अब मुझे भी लग रहा है मुझे भी ये फोबिया, ठीक है. मैंने साइलेंस पर रखा है, मुझे है अंदर स्ट्रेस तो है मुझे. तो पता नहीं कितने कॉल आ रही है. सैटरडे हमारे लिए बहुत ज्यादा हेक्टिक होता है, स्टूडेंट्स बहुत हेक्टिक होता है, क्योंकि उस दिन हमारा यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ होती है लेकिन बाकी चीजें ऑन होती है. फैमिली, वो हमसे भी कई फोन आ चुके हैं जब मैं आ रहा था, मैडम का ये करना है ये करना है. वी हैव द लिस्ट ऑफ द पॉइंट्स व्हिच वी हैव टू कवर. और मुझे अपने प्रोफेशनल काम बहुत करना, तो वो स्ट्रेस तो है. लेकिन अभी जो स्क्रीन टाइम यूज करने से आप देख सकते हैं मोर देन 5 आवर्स और 41%. ये डाटा है मेडिकल इंस्टीट्यूट्स का दिया हुआ डाटा है. एंड दिस इज नॉट लाइक ओनली द इंडियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट, दिस इज अ ग्लोबल कॉन्टेक्स्ट. तो उसके कंटेक्स्ट में क्या स्क्रीन टाइम हम कम करें, क्या करें, उस पर हम बात करेंगे. हाउ कुड बी मेक. तो व्हाई सोशल एंड इमोशनल लर्निंग मैटर्स इन डिजिटल एज, जिसकी मैं बात आपसे कर रहा हूं. इसको कैसे हम डिजिटल एज में कैसे इसको क्यों इंपॉर्टेंट है सोशल इमोशनल मैटर्स में, सोशल इमोशनल मैटर्स में. और अगर आप ये देखेंगे ये टर्म किसने लोगों से पूछे हैं, ये टर्म एसईएल क्या किस चीज की कॉन्टेक्स्ट की बात कर रहा है. ये टर्म पॉलिसी में भी यूज हुआ है. ये टर्म पर की बेसिस पर जैसे मैंने आपसे बताया, आई जस्ट शेयर विद यू, और करिकुलर फ्रेमवर्क हाउ आर बीइंग, इवन अभी यूजीसी का फ्रेमवर्क बन रहा फॉर हायर एजुकेशन. स्कूल एजुकेशन में तो एनसीएफ एसई हैज ऑलरेडी बीन handed over to the country in 2023, 29 जुलाई. तो पॉलिसी को 3 साल हुए तो उस पर ये हैंडेड ओवर हुआ. उसके बाद फिर उसके ऊपर एनसीईआरटी वगैरह ने बुक्स बनाना शुरू किया, कंटेंट डिजाइन करना शुरू हुआ, रिसोर्सेज डिजाइन हो रहे, टीचर्स की ट्रेनिंग हो रही. एनसीएफ 2023 also talks about SEL, and now UGC model curriculum which is being some of the curricular framework have already been uploaded on the UGC website, so you can go through that. These curricular framework do talk about SEL. यूनिवर्सिटीज में, कॉलेजेस में, अंडर ग्रेजुएट स्टूडेंट्स में, पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट में, नॉट टू से रिसर्च स्कॉलर्स आल्सो, वहां भी कहीं ना कहीं सोशल एंड इमोशनल लर्निंग के इश्यूज आ रहे हैं. सो दैट्स व्हाट वी हैव टू इंश्योर दैट द की एरियाज व्हिच वी हैव टू see, look at these points. You can go through that. How can we manage digital stress? How can we have, you know, that बहुत ज्यादा आजकल की डेट में हमको ये भी स्ट्रेस बहुत होता है. बड़े बड़े स्ट्रेस है मोबाइल के. मेरे पास सुबह कोई मैसेज आता है, मुझे एक स्ट्रेस होता है कि मैं हाउ कैन आई बिकम द फर्स्ट पर्सन टू फॉरवर्ड दैट मैसेज. पता है ना, फर्स्ट पर्सन. आज की डेट में हर टीवी चैनल, कल तो देखा बिहार के इलेक्शन का रिजल्ट, एवरी चैनल से आई एम द फर्स्ट चैनल टू ब्रेक दिस न्यूज. मतलब हर जगह स्ट्रेस. मेरे पास कोई मैसेज आता है तो मैं सोचता हूं मैं कैसे उसको सबसे पहले ग्रुप में शेयर करूं. आई शुड बिकम द फर्स्ट वन टू शेयर इन माय ग्रुप. तो ये भी, तो वो एक डिजिटल स्ट्रेस है, रिस्पॉन्सिबल डिजिटल. अब मैंने कहा कि आप डिजिटल क्लाइमेट से अपने आप को बाहर नहीं कर सकते. यू कांट से कि मोबाइल पे बैन कर दो. कुछ लोग सजेस्ट कर रहे हैं हटा दो मोबाइल, बंद कर दो, बहुत तंग हो गया. तो बिल्कुल टेक्नोलॉजी यूज नहीं होनी चाहिए कोई मोबाइल. तो क्या हम लोग अब उससे जा सकते हैं? अब उसी बारे में बात करेंगे. हाउ कैन वी हैव अ कोलैबोरेटिव प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग. नाउ वन इंस्टीट्यूट has tried. Now MIER can also work, because MIER is a very leading institute where you have the teaching, research, and extension. Because that's the requirement of any institute to work upon. MIER always believes in 3 domains of education, that is teaching, research, and extension. You will find in MIER teaching going on, you find in MIER research work going on, you find in MIER extension services going on. They have different departments which work on research, which work on teaching, work on extension services. And for that purpose, you can also try to work on that, because NCFSE and NEP also focuses upon that part. How can we have Indian social and emotional learning framework? So one institute tried for that, Teacher Education Institute, and they have created a framework. I'm just sharing with you example that is known as ICSSR, Indian model. Because ऐसे तो बहुत सारे मॉडल सोशल लर्निंग पर आ चुके हैं, सोशल इमोशनल लर्निंग पर. We have a model of CASEL also, collaborative academic social emotional learning. That's फॉरेन का मॉडल है, और हम लोग हमेशा ये चाहते हैं कि हमारा मॉडल स्पेसिफिक इंडियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट में मॉडल बने. And that model has been prepared. So we can work on this kind of thing where we have to understand self-awareness, self-management, relationship management, social awareness, and then it leads to decision making. So that model actually talks about, and the main thing which I have to work upon, that is role of educators in balancing technology and social and emotional learning. But technology के through आपने कैसे करना? Because technology should not become just a mean of transferring content, but technology should become an instrument of taking care of social and emotional learning, strengthening social and emotional learning, and what we have to do. So when we talk about technology, we talk about strategies. You can understand these are the different strategies which we could use, the description and expected outcome. Like screen time limits, उसमें हम क्या कर सकते हैं? Can we have, अभी उस पर भी आएंगे, बिल्कुल specific role of teachers पर भी आएंगे, क्या करना है? And I just humbly appeal to the research scholars also, because some of our scholars also in our Central University of Jammu are working on social and emotional learning, and there's a dire need of conducting research. How could we actually evolve a model, proper model for Indian context, where we can ensure social and emotional learning, whether through technology, whether through classroom transaction, whether through any means already. But I'm just concentrating on technological concepts. So what is the role of educators in balancing technology and SEL? So screen time limits, like we have to just use some daily and weekly digital use gaps, reduce screen dependence, and then what could be the other ways and means which we have to evolve the model. And since this is a forum where you have to present the paper, I think I'm just creating a spark. I'm just igniting you. Whenever you go for any conference, or maybe in this conference also, if you have to go for the presentation of papers, purpose of keynote address is always to create spark, create ignition, so that you can work it on. You can just take it on those aspects. And how could we go for the digital well-being education? So teaching students about healthy online habits. So what could be healthy online habits? You have to, I'll be coming in the next slide also, those practices. And so that again, you can reduce screen dependency. Then mindfulness and offline activities, this is third strategy. So how can you integrate non-digital SEL practices? Non-digital SEL practices mean just journaling, like having group discussions, having group work, having focus group discussions in the classes. What happens? I was just attending one meeting of the students somewhere, and the issue was the students were totally dissatisfied with the teachers. So it was very serious meeting somewhere. तो मुझे भी वहाँ मीटिंग में इनवाइट किया कि स्टूडेंट्स जो ने कंप्लेंट की किसी टीचर की कि वो मैडम जो है वो सिर्फ जो भी वो पढ़ा रहे हैं वी आर नॉट सेटिस्फाइड. सो प्रॉब्लम क्या था, इशू मैं आपसे बता रहा हूँ. issue was that while teacher was teaching in the class, most of the students were looking at the mobile. So teacher complained and the students also complained. So there was a conflict between teacher and students. Teacher said that teacher ने बच्चों को डांटा तो बच्चों ने कहा कि misbehave किया होगा. That was the complaint, and then ultimately a meeting was convened. क्या issue था? Issue was basically use of mobile in the class. The student said कि मैम जब या सर जो है पढ़ा रहे हैं, टीचर जब पढ़ा रहे हैं तो since what she was giving in the class, students का देखिए बड़ा legitimate use है mobile का. They said जो सर पढ़ा रहे हैं, मैडम पढ़ा रहे हैं, टीचर पढ़ा रहे हैं, whichever content she or he is sharing, we wanted to authenticate that. तो हमने उसको गूगल में सर्च करते हैं, हम लोग देखते हैं गूगल में सर्च करते हैं. चैट जीपीटी तो बहुत बड़ा आजकल हमारा दोस्त है, ठीक है. चैट जीपीटी से बड़ा आजकल सेंट कोई नहीं है, ठीक है. सेंट तो क्या हम वहां चेक करते हैं, और इसलिए तो वी वर रियली सरप्राइज कि अब इसका क्या सोल्यूशन निकालें, how to resolve this issue. And they were actually that making arguments that why were we using mobiles. Then the teachers have to change their, because teacher जो presentation लेकर आ रहे हैं, जो teachers लेकर आ रहे हैं, तो वो तो already हमको पता होता है, उसमें नया क्या है. Which teachers were not taking care of their social and emotional learning. That was the issue. And therefore we were using. So anyway, we resolved that कि आप लोग नहीं करेंगे. That's what I'm talking about. क्या आप अपनी क्लास में डिस्कशन, दैट सिंपल थिंग दैट यू इन्वॉल्व देम इन द डिस्कशन. बिकॉज स्क्रीन टाइम अगर आप वहां भी, और वो इशू बन गया है कि मैं आई एम जस्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट हायर एजुकेशन, स्कूल एजुकेशन. तो कई स्कूल्स ने मना कर दिया है क्लास में मोबाइल नहीं ले जा सकते. ओके, यू कैन डू दैट, बट व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट democratization of education and democracy, was John Dewey 9 years back. He said that there has to be democracy in the class. So democracy means students should be allowed to, and we talk about OER, open education resources. How can you stop a student to use or go to OER in the class? So we say no, OER class के बाहर देखना है. Class में तो CER देखोगे, closed education resources. Because I am the closed education resources. You cannot look at here and there. Just, and when we talk about, as technologists, we promote OER. And how can you say that no, OER class CER में चलेगी, class के बाहर OER होगा. So these are the issues which you have to be very concerned about. Structured use of educational tools, focusing on active educational screen using SEL sessions. SEL के कुछ sessions होते हैं, बहुत डिटेल में टॉपिक है, हम लोग इस पर बहुत काम कर रहे हैं इस वक्त, where you can improve social and emotional skills. And there are some technological tools also. I'm just actually I should not do that. I'm not doing any marketing, I'm sorry for that, but I'm just sharing with you some of the tools which could be used. These tools are very good tools for taking care of social and emotional learning. Class Dojo, I think बहुत लोगों ने सुना होगा, देखा भी होगा app. Emotional ABC, this is another tool, very popular tool, जिसके थ्रू हम लोग डिफरेंट एज ग्रुप के स्टूडेंट्स को या सिटीजन्स को इमोशनल सोशल लर्निंग की तरफ, सोशल इमोशनल लर्निंग की तरफ ले जा सकते हैं. और इसमें मैंने एग्जांपल्स दिए, उनका पर्पस क्या है, उसके की फीचर्स क्या हैं, उसमें इंटरैक्टिव वीडियोस हैं. because these are the apps, applications, technological applications, and these are the platforms through which or on which you can just that have that social emotional learning. Second step, this is another tool. I'm talking about technological tool. These are the apps. These are the, you can just go and download through so-called Play Store. Breathe, think, do. This is just 4 or 5 I have quoted. These are the different kind of technological tools. They have different purposes. Almost the common purpose is SEL. Common purpose is to just ensure that hardware and hardware, how to strike the balance between hardware and hardware. And mindfulness activities of young learners. ये मैंने खुद इन apps को देखा, what could be the options जहां पर हम लोग इन apps के through classroom के अंदर क्लासरूम के बाहर स्टूडेंट्स को इंटरेक्टिव सेशंस में इन्वॉल्व कर सकते हैं. एंड नॉट ओनली स्टूडेंट्स, इवन द सीनियर सिटीजंस कुड आल्सो इन्वॉल्व. आजकल अभी जस्ट अ डे बैक आई वाज इन अ हॉस्पिटल विद सम पर्संस. तो डॉक्टर, हॉस्पिटल मींस अ क्लिनिक. तो two senior citizens, Aditji, are the age of 70 years, wife, husband, were sitting just waiting for the doctor's turn to come. And naturally, they have to go doctor. अब एक उसमें patient होगा, दूसरा attendant हो. Or could be both are the patients, I don't know. But wife, husband, age 70, around 70 years. लेकिन दोनों उतना. तो मुझे ये हो रहा था कि आप भाई, they should have discussed something कि डॉक्टर से क्या कहना है. तो मुझसे तो रुका नहीं गया, हमने पूछ लिया. मैंने कहा सर आप आर यू वेटिंग? तो हमने कहा थोड़ा सा बातचीत क्या करनी है डॉक्टर से. बट वो आजकल वो आया ना, रील देखना, ये देखना, वो सब इतने, मतलब इतना ज्यादा अट्रैक्शन है उसमें. मैं आई थॉट कि कितना वो एक आइसोलेशन आ गया है. दिस इज वेरी सीरियस इशू. इट्स नॉट अमंग ओनली यंग लर्नर्स, दिस इज विद अवर एज ग्रुप आल्सो. जो एजेड लोग हैं उसमें भी इशू आ रहा है कि स्क्रीन टाइम बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ रहा है और हम लोग बहुत ज्यादा पैसिव होते जा रहे हैं अदर देन आवर सेल्फ. तो उसमें कैसे लाएंगे? अब कुछ प्रैक्टिकल क्लासरूम स्ट्रेटजीज क्या हो सकती हैं? वो जितने यंग टीचर्स और प्री सर्विस टीचर्स, फ्यूचर एम्बेसडर्स ऑफ टीचिंग आर सिटिंग इन द हॉल, what actually teachers have to do, students have to do, planners have to do, educational heads have to do. These are some practical classroom strategies. How to integrate hardware with hardware, टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ. Start the day with some emotional check-ins. वो तो जनरली कहा जाता है, इट्स वेरी ओल्ड प्रैक्टिसेस. लेकिन आजकल क्या होता है कि मैं अपना पीपीटी लगा देता हूँ या अपना सेशन चला और मैं सीधे जाता हूँ और आई स्टार्ट माय सेशन. तो बहुत ज्यादा हमारी जो डिपेंडेंस टेक्नोलॉजी की होगी इसमें कहा जाता है, इवन इन योर प्रेजेंटेशन, योर प्रेजेंटेशन कुड बी स्टार्टेड विद सम इमोशनल एस्पेक्ट्स. ऐसे बहुत लोग करते हैं, ऐसे आप लोग भी करते हो. तभी तो कॉन्सेप्ट आए आज की डेट में. अब कई बार हमको मैसेज आता है ना, कई बार हमको मैसेज सर बड़ा वो पैसिव लगता है. क्यों पैसिव लगता है? किसी ने मुझे मैसेज किया, उसमें एक इमोजी नहीं होता है. व्हाट इज इमोजी? अब जिसने इमोजीज बनाए वो सोच समझ के बनाए, वो आपकी तरह होगा सोशल इमोशनल लर्निंग का. भाई एक इमोजी आ जाता है उससे हम कितने खुश होते हैं. आप तो कहते हैं बस वो एक इमोजी आता है ना, वो ऐसा करके या हंसने वाला एक ड्रॉप यहाँ पर आ रहा है ना, ऐसा करके वो हमारी फीलिंग्स को कितना कंपनसेट करता है. These are small things, friends. These are small things. So with those things, you can start your day with the emotional check-ins. वो devices use करें, वो feelings बच्चों के अंदर लाएं. क्योंकि हम स्क्रीन के साथ, स्क्रीन मींस टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ इतना ज्यादा इन्वॉल्व हैं, वो कनेक्शन को आपने तोड़ना नहीं, बट वाया मीडिया देखना है उसका. And already I shared with you, you can have digital reflection journals, you can have some kind of activities where you can talk about with the students. कोई story telling हो सकती है, कोई story narrate कर सकते हैं, उनके इमोशंस को बैलेंस करने की कोशिश कर सकते हैं. ये तो हम लोग प्रीवियसली भी कहते हैं, लेकिन आज की डेट में जब टेक्नोलॉजी इतना ज्यादा डोमिनेट कर रही है, इन्फ्लुएंस कर रही है, व्हाट वी हैव टू टीच एंड टॉक एक्टिविटीज. टेक्निकल प्लस टॉक. आप टेक्निकल मोड में भी हो रहे हैं, लेकिन कई बार तो ऐसा होता है कि जो मेरा पीपीटी है बस वही है मेरे पास, वही मेरा संसार है, टीचर का भी वही संसार है, तो स्टूडेंट्स भी अभी मैं देख रहा हूँ कुछ लोग साथ साथ, क्योंकि संसार ही यही है. ठीक है, तो बीच में क्या है? टेक्निकल प्लस टॉक. टॉक तो होनी चाहिए. कई बार ऐसा होता है कि हम पीपीटी में इतना होता है कि बस पीपीटी हमारे पास है, बाई चांस पीपीटी का वो मान लीजिए यहीं पर अभी मैं जिस मोड में पीपीटी लाया, हो सकता है मेरी पेन ड्राइव में वायरस होता. ऐसा वही तो कई कॉन्फ्रेंसेस हुआ सर मुल्ला जी. पता चला मैं पीपीटी लेकर आया तो मेरे में वायरस लग गया, और जब वायरस लगा तो पूरी टीचिंग में वायरस लग गया, और टीचर से खड़ा कहता मेरे पास है ही नहीं कुछ. Because you are so dependent on technology that you don't have any talk. So that's very important thing. And what could be the model SCL, like कैसे हमारे मॉडल SCL जिसकी मैंने बात की, इस पर सीरियसली काम करने की जरूरत है. हमारे स्कॉलर्स बैठे हैं, स्टूडेंट्स बैठे हैं, इंस्टीट्यूट्स के हैं, कौशल जी हैं हमारे पास, मूलराज जी हैं, आदित्य जी हैं. हाउ कैन वी और हमारे पास सबसे बड़े तो मैडम रोनिका है जो इसी फील्ड में काम कर रहे हैं, स्पेशल एजुकेटर्स में। हमें तो आप लोगों की बड़ी जरूरत है, क्योंकि आगे आने वाले टाइम तो हम लोग भी लुक एट यू ओनली and then use technology for good. So these are the classroom practices, and these are already things we have talked about. The SWOT analysis we have done, that how what are the strength of SEL, what are the emerging threats. जैसे already मैंने आपसे बताया कि बहुत सारी इसकी threats भी हैं, बहुत सारे वो भी हैं, but we have to understand and don't become very apprehensive, but we have to understand the threats and accordingly we have to excel. And what could be the weaknesses and what are the opportunities? Look at the fourth point. What are the integration opportunities, which I already talked about? What could be the digital wellness tools, virtual empathy training? आज की डेट में अब वो जो हमारे टीचर्स ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम डिजाइन किए जा रहे हैं, जो आने वाले टाइम में स्टूडेंट्स एंड फ्रेंड्स, वी हैव टू कंसंट्रेट ऑन SEL. अब वो क्लास में सिर्फ हम लोग को टीचिंग, पुराने टाइम में कहते थे ना बीएड में चार्ट दिखाना है, तो आप तो जाते हो तो पीपीटी दिखाते हैं, लेकिन अब सोशल इमोशनल लर्निंग को कैसे करना है, क्रिएट करना है, उसके लिए ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम्स में बहुत ज्यादा एम्फेसिस हो रही है इसके बारे में. Specific training programs need to be organized for SEL promotion, and for that, that's the point. So that's what I wanted to share with you, that too much of dependence of technology, you can't avoid that. We talk about digital climate, we talk about digital dependence, but yes, of course, we have to seriously think that what could be the other ways, other means, other approaches, और हर टीचर को इवॉल्व करना पड़ेगा एक मॉडल जो कि अपनी टीचिंग में उसको यूज करके अपने आप में सब्जेक्ट एक्सपर्ट्स को सोचना पड़ेगा, टेक्नोलॉजी के एक्सपर्ट्स को देखना पड़ेगा. And that's what we have to work upon. With this, I wind up my interaction, and the house could be open for the question. I think you have the provision for that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for enriching us and deepens our understanding of how to create meaningful beliefs in today's learning environment. How teachers can play an important role in balancing technology with SEL, and now how technology we can take it as a bridge, not as a barrier. So thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to request Professor Adit Gupta to present a memento to Professor Balia as a mark of gratitude. Thank you, sir. Now we are moving towards the other next session, that is parallel sessions. So I request all the presenters, all the reporters to shift to their respective venues, and the participants who are online, they will also join through the respective links. Thank you so much. Venue 1, all the participants who are in venue 1 will stay here only, and venue 2 and venue 3 are shifted to the research scholar room, which is beside nearby, and committee room, which is in the